My brother's wife said, "Your parents will love you when you pay their bills." I laughed. But at Thanksgiving, my mom said, "You can't come unless you pay off your brother's credit card." I stood up, smiled, and said, "You're right. And that's why." Their faces dropped when they realized the account had already been closed, permanently. I used to think family was unconditional. That no matter what happened, no matter how much we fought or disagreed, at the end of the day, we were bound together by something stronger than words. Blood, history, love, whatever you wanted to call it. I believed that for a long time. Too long. But one night, over a bottle of wine and a cool autumn breeze, my sister-in-law, Marissa, shattered that illusion with a single sentence. "Your parents only love you when you pay their bills." She said it so matter-of-factly, without a hint of hesitation or doubt. Like she wasn't just giving her opinion. She was stating a fact. A truth I hadn't been ready to face. I laughed. Because what else could I do? "Come on," I said, shaking my head. "It's not like that." Marissa didn't argue. She just took a slow sip of her wine, and gave me this look. Not smug. Not pitying. Just knowing. Like she had already figured out the ending to a story. I hadn't even realized I was, and deep down, I knew she was right. Because the calls from my mother always came with a price. The affection, the warmth, the invitations to family events, they were never just about spending time together. There was always something attached. A bill that needed to be paid. A favor that needed doing. A problem that needed fixing. And I had been playing along my whole life. 2 months later, the phone call came. It was mid-November, and I was at work when my mom's name lit up my screen. I debated to mourn it. I already knew it wasn't just a casual, "How are you" call. But I sighed and picked up. "Hey, Mom." "Hi, sweetheart." Her voice was all sugary warmth. The way it always was when she wanted something. "How's my favorite child doing?" I leaned back in my chair, already bracing myself. "I'm good." "What's up?" Well, there was a pause. Like she was carefully choosing her words. "I wanted to talk to you about Thanksgiving." I glanced at my calendar. Thanksgiving was a week away. I already knew where this was going. "You're coming, right?" She continued. "It wouldn't be the same without you." "Yeah, I was planning to." I said cautiously. "Why?" She hesitated again. Then, with a sigh, she dropped the act. "It's your brother," she said, as if that explained everything. And in a way, it did. My brother Trevor had always been the one who needed saving. Ever since we were kids, he was the one getting into trouble. The one who couldn't quite get his life together. And my parents, especially my mother, had spent years covering for him. Making excuses and more often than not, pushing his problems onto me. "What about him?" I asked. Already knowing I wouldn't like the answer. "He's having a rough time," she said. Her voice dropping into that pleading, wheedling tone she used when she was about to ask me for something big. "His credit card bill is overdue. And the company is threatening to send it to collections. It's not a huge amount. Just a couple $1,000s. I was hoping you could help him out." I closed my eyes, pressing my fingers against my temple. "Mom," I said slowly. "Are you telling me I can't come Thanksgiving unless I pay off Trevor's credit card?" A beat of silence. Then an uncomfortable laugh. "Oh, don't be so dramatic." She chided. "No one's saying you can't come. We just thought, well, you're doing so well. And it's not like that kind of money is a big deal for you. It would mean a lot to the family." There it was. To the family. Not to Trevor. Not to her. The family. Like my worth. My place at the table was something that had to be earned. Paid for. And suddenly I thought back to that night on Marissa's porch. "Your parents only love you when you pay their bills." I let out a short laugh, but there was no humor in it. "I'll take care of it," I said before she could try to guilt me further. "Oh sweetheart. I knew we could count on you," she gushed. "You're such a good son." I hung up without responding. And then I called the bank. I paid off the balance. Every last cent. Then I closed the account permanently. See, what my mother had conveniently left out was that the credit card in question was in my name. Years ago, when Trevor had screwed up his finances again, he had begged me to co-sign for him. Said he just needed a little help, that he'd be responsible, that he'd pay me back. He never did. And I, being the I that I was, had let it slide again and again, but not this time. This time I was done. Thanksgiving came and I showed up as planned. The house smelled like turkey and stuffing. The air thick with the usual holiday chaos. My parents were bustling around. Trevor was lounging on the couch like he didn't have a care in the world. And Marissa, well, she just gave me a knowing look from across the room. Dinner started off normally enough. Plates passed around, small talk, forced laughter. And then my mother turned to me with that expectant smile. "So sweetheart," she said, her voice dripping with sweetness. "You took care of that little issue for your brother, right?" I took a sip of my wine savoring the moment. "Yep," I said casually, "all taken care of." Trevor let out a sigh of relief. "Oh man, you have no idea how much that helps." I interrupted, setting my glass down. "I also closed the account." Silence. Mom blinked. "You. What?" Trevor sat up straighter, his smile faltering. "Wait, you closed it?" I nodded, still perfectly calm. "Yeah, paid off the balance. Shut it down. So you won't have to worry about it anymore." The color drained from Trevor's face. But what?" I tilted my head. "You don't need it, right? This was the last time you were going to use it. Because this was the last time I was paying for it." Mom opened her mouth, then closed it again. Dad shifted uncomfortably. Trevor looked at me like I had personally betrayed him. "That's not what we meant." Mom finally said, her voice tight. "No," I said, "it's exactly what you meant." I let that hang in the air for a moment. Then, slowly, I stood up, grabbed my coat and smiled. "Thanks for dinner," I said, pushing in my chair. "But Marissa was right. You only love me when I pay your bills. And I'm done buying your love." I turned and walked out, leaving them sitting there in stunned silence. As I walked out of my parents' house, the cold November air hit me like a slap to the face. My breath came out in clouds, and I could hear the muffled voices inside, confused, angry, stunned into silence. But no one followed me, not even Trevor. I got into my car and just sat there, hands gripping the steering wheel, staring at the house I had grown up in. It was strange, really. I had spent my entire life bending over backward to make sure I never disappointed them. Never gave them a reason to push me away. And yet, here I was, realizing that all it had ever taken for them to turn on me was saying no for the first time. A knock on my window made me jump. I turned to see Marissa standing outside, arms wrapped around herself, her breath fogging up the glass. Rolling down the window, I saw, let me guess, they're in there calling me selfish. She snorted, something like that. "Your mom's acting like you just threw a grenade into the mashed potatoes." Trevor's still trying to process the fact that he no longer has access to free money. "Your dad, well, you know how he is. Quiet, but pissed." I exhaled through my nose, shaking my head. "Figures." Marissa hesitated, then asked, "You okay?" Was I for the first time in a long time? I didn't know how to answer that. I wasn't sad, exactly. There was no guilt, no second guessing. Just emptiness. Like I had spent so much time running on autopilot, feeding into their expectations. That now that I had finally pulled the plug, I didn't know what to do with myself. "I think so," I said finally. "Just processing." She nodded. "Understand. You know, they're probably going to try to guilt you into fixing this. Especially your mom. She's already ranting about how families take care of each other. And you don't just abandon people." I scoffed. "Funny how that only applies when I'm the one paying." "Exactly." I rubbed a hand down my face. Suddenly exhausted. I should just head home. I don't have the energy for this tonight. Marissa shifted on her feet. "I get that. But, can I give you some advice?" I arched an eyebrow. "Since when do you ask permission?" She grinned. "Fair point. Here's my unsolicited advice then. Don't go dark on them just yet. They're gonna be mad. Sure. But this is the first time you've ever stood up to them like this. They're gonna push back. Try to make you feel like the bad guy. If you disappear, they'll use that to paint you as the problem. But if you stand your ground and make them sit with it. Really sit with it. Maybe, just maybe, they'll start to see the truth." I frowned. "You really think they're capable of that kind of self-reflection?" She laughed. "No. But I do think they're capable of realizing they can't manipulate you anymore. And that's a start." I sighed. "Great. Love that for me." Marissa smirked, then stepped back from the car. Well, if nothing else, this Thanksgiving was a HLL of a lot more entertaining than usual. It couldn't help but laugh. Glad I could provide the drama. She tapped the roof of my car. Get some rest, alright? Something tells me the fallout isn't over yet. I nodded. Yeah. Thanks, Marissa. She just waved me off and headed back inside. I pulled out of the driveway, my hands steady on the wheel, my mind a storm of thoughts. And as I drove home, my phone vibrated in the cup holder. A text from Mom, we need to talk. Call me when you're ready to apologize. I let out a dry, humorless laugh. Of course. I put the phone face down and kept driving. For the first time in my life, I had nothing to apologize for. I wish I could say that was the end of it. That after Thanksgiving, my family had some kind of epiphany and everything changed. That my parents realized how unfair they had been. That Trevor finally learned to take responsibility for his own life. That we all sat down and had some deep heartfelt conversation that fixed years of resentment. But life doesn't work like that. 2 days later, the calls started. At first, I ignored them. Let them go to voicemail. But they kept coming. Mom, Dad. Even Trevor, though his texts were mostly along the lines of, dude, why are you being such a dick? Eventually curiosity got the better of me. And I listened to one of Mom's messages. Sweetheart, I just don't understand what's gotten into you. We're family. Families help each other. I don't know why you're acting like we're the enemy. But this isn't right. Call me back, please. She sounded sad. Almost desperate. And if I hadn't been through this cycle before, I might have believed it was genuine. But I knew better. The thing about my mother is that she knew exactly how to push my buttons. She knew when to play the loving parent and when to twist the KNFE. And right now, she was playing the victim, acting like I had suddenly turned on them for no reason. Like she hadn't spent my entire life treating me like a walking ATM. I deleted the voicemail. A few hours later, another text came through. This one from Dad. Your mother is upset. You need to fix this. I stared at the message, then locked my phone without responding. Fix what? The fact that for the first time, I wasn't letting them take advantage of me. The fact that I had drawn a boundary. There was nothing to fix. The only thing that had changed was that I had stopped playing their game. But they weren't ready to let me go just yet. Because a few days later, I got a call from an unknown number. And when I answered, I heard a voice I hadn't expected. Hey, it's Aunt Rachel. I frowned. Hey. Everything okay? She sighed. Look, I don't want to get in the middle of anything, but your mom called me. She's really upset about whatever happened at Thanksgiving. She said she just wants to talk. Of course she did. Aunt Rachel had always been the mediator in the family. The one who swooped in to smooth things over whenever things got tense. And now, my mother had brought her in to try to guilt me into backing down. I clenched my jaw. Rachel, I love you, but I'm not playing this game anymore. I get that, she said carefully. But it's just money, isn't it? Is it really worth losing your family over? And there it was. The same argument. The same justification. The same expectation. Like it was just some minor inconvenience. Like I should just SCK it up, pay and move on. Because that's what I had always done. But not anymore. I took a slow breath. It was never just about money. I said, a pause. Then she sighed again. I figured you'd say that. Then you already know my answer. She didn't argue. Just murmured. Take care of yourself before hanging up. I put my phone down, staring at the ceiling. They weren't giving up. Not yet. But neither was I. The messages and calls didn't stop. If anything, they got worse. My mom alternated it in guilt-tripping and lashing out like she couldn't decide whether to play the heartbroken mother or the angry one. One moment, it was, I just don't understand what I did to deserve this treatment from my own son. The next, it was, you're being unbelievably selfish. We raised you and this is how you repay us. Dad wasn't much better. His texts were short to the point. You need to make this right. Enough is enough. Stop acting like a child. Trevor, on the other hand, was more direct. Dude, what the HLL? Mom's a mess because of you. You need to fix this. At least tell me why you closed the account. That one actually made me laugh. As if the reason wasn't obvious. I ignored all of them. But then, 5 days after Thanksgiving, I got a text that made my stomach turn. It was from my dad. "We're done with this nonsense. If you want to act like you don't have a family, then don't expect one when you come crawling back." I stared at the screen, something heavy settling in my chest. I had always known this was coming. Deep down, I had always known that the moment I stopped being useful to them, they would cut me off. But seeing it in writing, that was different. That made it real. I sat with it for a long time, rereading the words over and over, waiting for the guilt to come, waiting for the urge to fix things. To apologize, to smooth everything over like I always had. It didn't come. Instead, all I felt was, tired. So tired. That night, Marissa called. "You okay?" she asked, skipping the small talk. "Yeah," I said automatically. She made a doubtful noise. "Try again." I sighed, rubbing my eyes. "I don't know. I think my parents just disowned me." Silence. Then, a sharp exhale. "Wow, they actually said that?" "Yup, pretty much told me if I'm not willing to be their personal ATM. I'm not their son anymore." Marissa let out a slow, low whistle. "Damn, yeah." Another pause. Then, she asked, "How do you feel?" I thought about it. I should have been devastated. Losing your parents, no matter how dysfunctional the relationship, wasn't something you just brushed off. And yet, I didn't feel the kind of grief I would have expected. What I felt was clarity. "It hurts," I admitted. "But, I also feel like I can breathe for the first time in years." Marissa hummed. "That's because you're finally out." "Out? Out of the cycle," she explained. "The guilt. The obligation. The never-ending drain of being the good child. It's like an abusive relationship. You don't realize how much it's suffocating you, until you finally step away." I leaned back on my couch, staring at the ceiling. "Yeah," I murmured. "That sounds about right." Marissa hesitated. "Do you think they'll actually cut you off?" I sighed. "Honestly, I don't know. I think they're hoping I'll cave first. But if I do, they'll find someone else to lean on." That was the part that made my stomach twist. Because the next logical target was Marissa. She was married to Trevor, after all. And now that I was no longer the one bailing him out, that responsibility would inevitably shift to her. I sat up. "Marissa, you know they're gonna come for you next, right?" She snorted. "Oh, I know. Your mom's already been laying the groundwork, dropping hints about how marriage means supporting each other, and how she hopes I understand the importance of family." I groaned. "God, I'm so sorry." "Don't be," she said easily. "They're not my responsibility, either. And I don't play by their rule." I believed her. Marissa was a force of nature. Tough. No nonsense. And unwilling to be manipulated. If anyone could handle my mother's guilt trips, it was her. But that didn't mean my parents wouldn't try. "Trevor's already whining about how I don't get it," she continued. "He's convinced you're just being an A for no reason." "Of course he is." I muttered. "Yeah, well, he'll figure it out eventually. Or he won't. Either way, not my problem." Her tone was casual. But I could hear the exhaustion underneath it. Marissa had spent years watching her husband mooch off his family, enabling his behavior because it was easier than fighting him on it. But now that I was out of the picture, she was about to see just how deep his entitlement ran. And I had a sinking feeling it wasn't going to end well. A week passed. I didn't hear from my parents. Not a single text. Not a single call. For the first time in my life, the silence felt louder than their voices ever had. At first, it was strange. The absence of them in my daily routine felt like a missing limb. Something I kept reaching for out of habit. Only to remember it was gone. But as the days went by, that absence started to feel less like a loss and more like relief. No more anxiety. Every time my phone rang, no more waiting for the other shoe to drop. No more guilt pressing down on my chest. I was free. Or at least, I thought I was. Until one afternoon, I got an unexpected call. Not from my parents. Not from Trevor. But from an unknown number. I debated, ignoring it. But something in my gut told me to pick up. "Hello." A pause. Then, a voice I hadn't heard in years. "Hey kid, it's Uncle Dave." I blink. Uncle Dave? My mother's older brother. The black sheep of the family. The one who had cut ties years ago and never looked back. Why the hell was he calling me now? Yeah, he said gruffly. Look, I know we haven't talked in a while, but I heard about what happened. Your mom's been running her mouth to the whole damn family. Of course she had. I sighed. Let me guess. She made it sound like I just abandoned them for no reason. Oh, absolutely, he said dryly. According to her, you've turned into some greedy, ungrateful bastard who doesn't care about family. I snorted. Sounds about right. There was a pause. Then, in a quieter voice, he asked, but that's not what really happened, is it? I hesitate. Uncle Dave had always been an outsider. Someone my parents spoke about in hushed tones. As if he were some cautionary tale. He had walked away from them before I was even old enough to understand why. And now, for the first time, I was starting to wonder if I had been too young to see the full story. No, I admitted, it's not. Another pause. Then, he sighed. Yeah, he said. Almost to himself. That's what I thought. I frowned. Dave, why did you leave? He let out a bitter chuckle. Kid, let me tell you something. The thing about your parents. They don't love people. They use them. And the second you stop being useful. Well, you already know how that goes. I swallowed hard. Because I did know I was useful. Until I wasn't. And now, here I was. Talking to the last person who had walked this road before me. I didn't know what he wanted. I didn't know what he was about to say. I sat back in my chair, gripping the phone a little tighter. I had so many questions, but I didn't know where to start. Uncle Dave had always been this shadowy figure in our family. Someone my parents dismissed whenever he was mentioned. Unreliable, selfish, ungrateful. Those were the words they used. I had been a kid when he disappeared from our lives. Too young to really understand why. But now. Now I was starting to think his story wasn't so different from mine. Alright, I said, exhaling. Tell me. What happened back then? Dave sighed on the other end. I don't know how much you remember, but I used to be real close with your dad. We were tight growing up. Then I met your mom and for a while everything was fine. She liked me well enough, but she was always controlling. She needed things done her way. And if they weren't, you were the bad guy. I nodded even though he couldn't see me. Yeah, that track. Well, it really started after I got my first big promotion. I was making good money better than your dad. And suddenly it was like I had a giant target on my back. Your parents were always in some kind of financial trouble. Your dad with his bad investments, your mom with her spending, and every time they came to me. He swallowed hard and let me guess you helped. At first he admitted, I told myself it was family. That's what you do, right? But it was never enough. The more I gave, the more they needed. And then when I finally said no, he let out a humorless chuckle. They flew. Your mom told the whole family I was selfish, that I was abandoning them. Your dad stopped talking to me. They punished me for not being their personal bank anymore. My stomach twisted. Jesus. Sound familiar? Yeah, I murmured. Way too familiar. There was a beat of silence. Then Dave asked, tell me something. What was the final straw for you? I hesitated, then said, Thanksgiving. Mom told me I wasn't welcome unless I paid off Trevor's credit card. A low whistle. Damn, she didn't even try to be subtle about it, huh? Nope. Yeah, he said, voice tight. That sounds about right. I was lucky. I didn't have a sibling they could use to keep me hooked. But you are the golden child, huh? The responsible one. I let out a bitter laugh. You have no idea. Oh, I do. He said they groomed you for it, trained you to take care of them, to be the good son. And the worst part was he was right. For years, I had let them drain me emotionally, financially, mentally. I had convinced myself that this was just how families work, that I owed it to them. That saying no made me the bad guy. But now I wasn't so sure. I rubbed my face. So what happened? How did you finally get out? Dave sighed. It wasn't easy. Your mom tried everything. Guilt, anger, even dragging the rest of the family into it. I lost people over it. They believed her, not me. And your dad, he never forgave me. Even after all these years, I bet if you asked him, he'd say I was the one who abandoned them. I nodded slowly. Yeah, that sounds exactly like what they're doing to me. Of course it is. Because people like them, they don't change. They don't reflect. They don't apologize. They just find new ways to make you feel like you're the problem. Something about hearing him say that out loud made my chest tighten. Because a part of me still wanted to believe that if I just explained it the right way, if I just proved to them how unfair they were being, they'd see it. They'd understand. But deep down, I knew the truth. They didn't want to understand. Understanding meant losing control over me. I exhale. So what do I do? There was a pause. Then Dave said, "You already did it. You walked away. Now you just have to be strong enough not to go back." I swallowed hard. Easier said than done. I know, he admitted. But listen kid, you're not alone in this. If you ever need to talk, if you ever need a damn Thanksgiving dinner next year, you give me a call, alright? For the first time in weeks, something inside me loosened. Yeah, I said quietly. I will. Good, he said. Because the thing is, you might have lost some family in all this, but you're also finding out who your real family is. And for the first time, I started to believe that maybe, just maybe, he was right. For the next few weeks, I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. After my call with Uncle Dave, I felt like I finally had some perspective. Like maybe I wasn't the villain my parents were trying to paint me as. But knowing that and feeling it were two different things. The silence from my family should have been a relief, but it wasn't. It felt like the eerie calm before a storm. The kind that makes the air too still. The sky too heavy. I knew my mother too well to believe she was just going to let this go. Then, just before Christmas, she made her move. It started with a call from HR. I was in the middle of my work day when my phone buzzed. I frowned when I saw the caller ID. HR didn't call unless something was seriously wrong. "Hey, this is my name." A pause. Then, "Hi, this is Lisa from HR. We just received a call regarding a potential ethics concern. And I wanted to touch base with you directly." My stomach dropped. An ethics concern? Yeah, a woman identifying herself as your mother called in, claiming you have been misusing company funds for personal expenses. She alleged that you have a history of financial dishonesty and implied that your role here may not have been obtained through legitimate means. I nearly choked. Are you kidding me? Lisa sighed. I had a feeling it might be personal. I wanted to speak with you first before taking any further action. I closed my eyes, gripping the phone tightly. Of course. Of course, this was my mother's next move. If she couldn't control me financially anymore, she'd try to ruin me professionally. Lisa, I'm going to be really honest with you. I said, voice tight. This is retaliation. I recently cut ties with my parents because they were financially taking advantage of me. My mother is grasping at anything she can to get back at me. Lisa was silent for a moment, then said, I assumed as much. We're not taking her accusations seriously, but I wanted you to be aware. Do you feel safe? I exhaled, running a hand through my hair. Yeah, I mean, she's not going to show up at my house or anything. She wants to scare me. Well, she failed, Lisa said with a small chuckle. We've documented the call and won't be taking any action. But if she tries anything else, let us know. We don't tolerate harm in of our employees, even from family. I let out a shaky breath. Thanks, Lisa. I really appreciate it. No problem. And for what it's worth, you're not the first person I've seen go through something like this. People like that don't know how to handle losing control. She wasn't wrong. After that, I knew I couldn't just sit back and wait for my mother's next move. She wasn't going to stop until she had to stop. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I cut them off completely. No more waiting to see if they'd reach out. No more leaving the door open just in case they came around. I changed my phone number, blocked my parents and Trevor on every platform. Took steps to make sure they couldn't get any more information about me. Froze my credit, updated my work records, even had my bank put extra security measures on my accounts. And then for the final nail in the coffin, I forwarded everything to Aunt Rachel and a few other extended family members. I sent them screenshots of my parents' messages, the HR call, everything. I didn't try to spin it. I just said, I know you've heard my mother's version of events, so I figured you should see mine. If you still think I'm the villain in this, then that's your choice. But this is the truth. Then I hit send and let the fallout unfold. The messages started pouring in within hours. Some were silent, just relatives unfriending or blocking my mom on social media. Others weren't so quiet. Aunt Rachel, I cannot believe she would go this far. I had no idea. Cousin Jamie, your mom called me last week saying you were losing your mind. Jesus, I'm sorry, man. Uncle Matt, she tried to tell me you betrayed the family. This makes a lot more sense now. And then, finally, a text from Trevor. Trevor, you really had to go and humiliate Mom like that. What the HLL is wrong with you? I stared at it for a long time before replying. Me, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me is that I spent my entire life letting her treat me like an ATM. And the second I stopped, she tried to destroy my career. She did this to herself. Trevor, you might be okay being her pawn, but I'm done. He didn't reply. And that was fine because I wasn't doing this to get him on my side. I was doing this to make sure my mother never had power over me again. Christmas came and went without a word from my parent. The silence felt different this time. Before it was a test, a way to make me feel their absence and come crawling back. But now it was defeat. I had called their bluff. And for the first time in their lives, they had no cards left to play. A few days into the new year, Marissa called me, "You're not gonna believe this," she said, barely holding back laughter. I smirked, "Try me. Your mom's losing her mind over the fact that half the family won't talk to her anymore. Apparently, she called Aunt Rachel, screaming about how you poisoned everyone against her." I laughed, poisoned by telling the truth. "Exactly," Marissa said. She thought she could just manipulate her way through this like she always does. But people are finally seeing her for what she really is. I shook my head, smiling. She did this to herself. Yep, Marissa agreed. So, how's it feel? I thought about it. About how, for the first time, I wasn't dreading the next phone call. About how my money was mine again. About how I had spent my whole life thinking I needed my family. Only to realize the only thing I ever needed was to walk away. So I just smiled and said, "Feels like a brand new year." And it did. For the first time in my life, I wasn't carrying their baggage anymore. And I never would again.
Good morning， 早安，妈妈们。借我你那个麦试一下。你们收到了这个 Oxford Dictionary Pen 没有啊 ？E 卡姆斯就是上次 Copy 的第一，跟这个 E 卡姆斯配合，然后开卖的这个 E 卡姆斯。就是 E 卡姆斯我自己呢也有买一套给我的孩子，然后呢我也买一套送给。